When a millionaire asks a cleaning lady for a DNA test, the shocking name changes everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the opulent mansion, a castle shimmering with secrets. I, Lila, stood in the grand foyer, heart thrumming, hands trembling as I clutched my mop like a lifeline. The smell of polished wood and the faint whisper of expensive perfume filled the air. I felt out of place, like a worn-out shoe in a showroom. It was just another day until it wasn't. Mr. Blake Hunt, the elusive billionaire, suddenly loomed over me. His piercing blue eyes were locked on mine, a storm brewing behind them. "I need you to take this," he said, thrusting a small envelope into my shaking hand. It felt heavy with unspoken truths. Confusion swirled in my mind. A DNA test? Why? The air thickened with tension as I noticed the bitterness hidden in his voice, the pain etched on his handsome face. We had exchanged pleasantries before, but never this. I glanced around, the luxurious furniture witnessing this peculiar exchange, but no one else moved. The silence was deafening. That I had always been just the cleaning lady in his world. Always scrubbing floors and dusting the shelves of his endless wealth. But the look in his eyes revealed something deeper, something raw that caught me off guard. My heart raced. I wanted to scream, run away from this moment, but my feet felt glued to the ground. What if I was not just a stranger to him? What if our paths were intertwined in ways I couldn't even imagine? I remembered my mother's stories of the past, murmurs of family secrets that could shake the very foundation of my existence. A chill ran down my spine. Was I somehow involved in a hidden legacy? Blake's lips tightened, and the shadows deepened around us, voices of distant staff muttering in disbelief. "This isn't a joke, Lila," he insisted, desperation tinging his tone. I wanted to plead with him to explain, to reveal the secrets tucked into that little envelope. But I couldn't find my voice. Just as I took a step forward, a crashing sound echoed from downstairs, breaking the intensity like a fragile glass shattering on the floor. And then, silence fell again. In that heartbeat, everything shifted. What was happening? Why was this ordinary day morphing into a whirlwind of chaos and suspense? The urge to flee battled with a deeper need to understand. I stared up at him, my world spiraling as uncertainty hovered in the air. The weight of the envelope felt like a ticking time bomb in my hands. My heart thudded louder, drowning out everything else. Who was I to him, really? No answers. Just questions hanging like clouds, ready to burst. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the fragmented silence settled around us, I felt as if time had drawn out the weighty moment between breaths. I glanced at the envelope, my heart fluttering with every shift of paper beneath my fingertips. The elaborate curls of Blake's signature loomed in my Mindan anchor point in the encroaching storm of uncertainty. Lila, his voice broke into my thoughts, a plea laced with something more profound than mere urgency. You need to take this seriously. I wouldn't ask if it weren't important. The gravity of his words pierced through my confusion, revealing the urgency beneath his steely exterior. I wanted to lash out, to demand the truth behind his request, but the vulnerability in his eyes held me captive. I had always viewed him as untouchable, living in a realm where my existence hardly mattered. Now, we stood as two souls on the precipice, thrust together by threads of fate I could scarcely understand. Before I could respond, a soft rustle drew my gaze to the grand staircase where Claire, the head housekeeper, appeared, her brow furrowed with concern. Is everything all right? she asked, her tone tinged with warmth as if instinctively sensing the emotional storm brewing between us. A flicker of hope ignited inside me at the sight of her, a small kindness amidst this chaos. Claire had always been my guide, offering gentle advice over coffee breaks, filling my world with encouragement. But how could I share this upheaval with her? She would never look at me the same way if I revealed my entanglement with the man everyone whispered about in the dark corners of the mansion. Blake's gaze darted toward Claire, and I could see the internal struggle on his face. I held my breath, torn between wanting to confide in the only person I trusted and the intricate web we were caught in. "It's nothing, just a misunderstanding," he finally replied, his voice clipped. Claire's eyes narrowed, reading between the lines, but she didn't push. "Very well. Just remember, Lila, you can always talk to me," she bid, her voice softening before she turned to leave. The moment she vanished from view, the tension thickened again, almost suffocating. "Take the test, Lila," Blake urged, his intensity returning. "It could reveal things you don't even know about yourself." My voice wavered. "What if it changes everything? What if I wish I didn't know?" "It's better than living in the shadows," he said, frustration bleeding into his tone, but under it all, lay an unmistakable hint of desperation. "Please, just trust me." His pursuit for answers mirrored my own insatiable curiosity. But trust? It felt like a fragile bridge, built on a foundation of uncertainties. I held the envelope more tightly, feeling its pulse against my chest, matching my own racing heartbeat. "Why me?" I asked softly, the vulnerability spilling from my lips before I could swallow it back down. "Why would you want to know anything about me?" For a moment, his facade cracked, revealing a flicker of something raw behind his steely gaze. "Because you remind me of." He halted abruptly, as if he had been on the verge of confessing something monumental, but chose to seal it away. Just then, the crashing sound echoed again, this time louder, an ominous crash reverberating through the mansion like a foreboding whisper of disaster. The distant shouts of staff members filled the air, rising up like a tempest, and panic surged. What was that? I took a tentative step backward, the envelope now feeling like a bomb poised to detonate in my hands. "I don't know, but we need to check it out," Blake said, hurriedly lowering his voice. "Stay close to me." His urgency ignited a new spark within my chest. With every hurried step towards the commotion, a new revelation dawned upon me. If the chaos stemmed from secrets like the one this envelope threatened to expose? The universe often conspired to deliver moments of clarity amidst turmoil. One couldn't exist without the other. As we navigated through the mansion, each doorway felt like a portal into my past. The vases, the furniture, each object grounded me, reminding me of the mundane existence I once knew while tethering me to this wealthy enigma before me. Suddenly, a sharp scream pierced through the air, and I felt my breath hitch, the dread coiling tightly within me. When we arrived at the source of the commotion, I emerged into the lavish great room, only to find a figure sprawled on the ornate carpet, someone I least expected. My heart dropped as I recognized the familiar face, a long-lost relative I had thought long gone, a ghost resurfaced from the shadows. "Uncle Sam?" I breathed, disbelief flooding my system. Questions surged within me as I stood frozen, the envelope slipping through my fingers, falling to the ground. In the span of one unforeseen moment, the delicate balance between my world and Blake's shattered into a million fragments, unearthed in the chaos of revelations. And with my family's unanticipated return, I sensed our lives, Blake's and mine, would never be the same again. The air grew thick with tension, a palpable mix of disbelief and urgency. I fell to my knees, my heart hammering against my ribcage as I struggled to comprehend the sight before me. Uncle Sam, the embodiment of my childhood stories, lay sprawled across the intricately patterned carpet, his usually jovial demeanor replaced with a stark stillness. My mind raced, attempting to knit together fragments of a past that had unraveled long ago. Blake knelt beside me, his presence a firm anchor amidst the chaos, but even he seemed engulfed by the weight of uncertainty. "Lila, is he?" His voice trailed off, heavy with unspoken questions, eyes searching mine for answers that evaded me. I tentatively reached for Uncle Sam's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath my fingers, my pulse racing. "Uncle Sam!" I called out, shaking him gently, disbelief twisting into panic. Please, wake up. No response. I could hear the muffled chaos around us, the sharp inhalations and hurried footsteps of the staff, yet all that noise faded into a distant hum as I remained rooted to the spot. A sense of dread swallowed me whole, lifting the corners of my heart into an abyss. Just then, Claire reappeared, flanked by a couple of paramedics who swiftly moved into the room. The moment their eyes fell on Uncle Sam, a flurry of commands erupted, drowning out the scattered murmurs. What happened? Did anyone see him fall? I barely registered the questions, only managing to shake my head, my gaze still fixed on the face that had been such a vibrant part of my childhood fabric, now a forgotten thread, dust-covered and frayed. As they worked, a flood of memories cascaded upon me, summer days spent running through fields, laughter echoing against softly spoken tales of adventure. The man who made life seem brighter as he told stories of daring escapades now lay motionless, and the enormity of being face to face with the past struck like lightning in my chest. Step back, please. A paramedic instructed, urgency flickering in their eyes as they began their work. But as the crisp scent of antiseptic suffused the air and the lights overhead gleamed coldly, my heart raced, not just for Uncle Sam's life hanging in the balance but for the consequences of his return. I felt Blake's hand on my back, a steadying force amidst the storm. It was a gesture of kindness, revealing the depth beneath his facade of control. Lila, can you hear me? His voice was low but firm, cutting through the haze that had settled around me. We might need to leave here soon. We can't stay in this chaos, it might not be safe. His words quelled the panic slightly, but the urgency only stoked a deeper anxiety. You don't understand. If he doesn't make it, I choked on the thought, biting back tears that threatened to spill over. My resolve felt fragile beneath the surface. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together, Blake assured me, his gaze unwavering. I wished I could believe him, but the creeping uncertainty made it feel insurmountable. The paramedics had revived Uncle Sam, yet he remained groggy and disoriented. I leaned closer, cradling his hand as recognition slowly flickered in his eyes, instantly drawing warmth to my heart. Lila? What are you doing here? He murmured, his voice barely above a whisper but laden with genuine shock. That I am here for you, Uncle Sam, I said, battling tears. I felt like a child again, longing for that sense of safety he used to provide. The room spun as reality crashed down. If he had returned, what shadows loomed over our family? The paramedics began to guide him to a stretcher. We're going to take you to the hospital for further checkups, one said, their voice a calm balm against the emotional whiplash. Can you please? I interjected, but my voice broke. I longed to ask if he remembered what had driven him away, what buried secrets had thrust him into obscurity. It's okay, he'll be just fine, Uncle Sam reassured me with a faint smile, but his eyes told a different story. He seemed lost, disconnected from the reunion I had yearned for all these years. That I and the distance, I noticed. Movement, an unfamiliar set of eyes observing the scene from the doorway, shadowed and intense. I turned away from Uncle Sam's weary face, curiosity prickling my skin. Whoever it was, they didn't belong here. Yet I could see urgency laced in their gaze, an intertwining of disquiet and anticipation. Lila, we need to move, Blake's voice came again, insistently now. I nodded, yet part of me was rooted in place. I couldn't let this piece of my history slip away again, nor could I abandon Uncle Sam. I found myself yearning for unknown truths, for the connection that had been severed for so long, but a sudden jolt of clarity reminded me of the envelope. What secrets was Blake so desperate for me to uncover? If Uncle Sam was here, would the truth be as simple as I hoped, or would it unravel everything I thought I knew? Is everything okay? I called to Blake, catching his eye. But before he could respond, the figure at the door stepped into the light, revealing a face I recognized, yet never expected to see. My breath caught in my throat as recognition washed over me like a cold wave. Lila, we need to talk about your father, they said, their voice heavy with implications that I could not yet comprehend, and just like that, the fragile threads of my reality began to fray. The air felt charged with unspoken secrets, vibrating with a gravity that suggested the familiar ground beneath me was sinking. The figure stood there, a ghost from my past, holding my gaze with an intensity that warped my reality. "What do you mean?" I managed to stammer, my voice shaking, mirroring the chaotic swirl inside my mind. My father's name hung between us like a curse, twisted and heavy. My memories of him were smudged, only brief glimpses of a man who once filled my world with laughter before vanishing like a fleeting dream. "Why are you here?" I demanded, still clutching Uncle Sam's hand, my anchor in a storm transforming into an ocean of confusion. "It's time to understand the truth of what happened," the stranger said, moving cautiously toward me. Each step felt as though it might crack the tenuous shield of my composure. "Your father's situation is more complicated than you think." Blake shifted beside me, his protective presence surging to the forefront. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice low and tense. I could see the gears in his mind turning, assessing this new threat. "Just someone who needs to ensure Lila learns the truth before it's too late." The figures steadied themselves, glancing towards the commotion surrounding Uncle Sam and back to me. Their sharp features became softer under the warm overhead light, but their intent was clear. I was on the precipice of something monumental, yet terrifying. As paramedics wheeled Uncle Sam away, I felt a shift in the air. His departure felt like a chapter closing. "Wait!" I called out, my voice a desperate plea, hoping against hope that the man who once held my childhood memories would return and embrace the hallmarks of family I had longed for. But he was gone, leaving only a heavy silence in his absence. "This isn't the time for this," Blake urged, his tone protective yet laced with concern. But the stranger pressed on, a glint of urgency flickering in their eyes. "You need to know why your father left, why he built this wall between himself and your family." I shook my head, bewilderment spiraling inside me like a tempest. "I don't care about him. Not what he did. Not the lies." Even as I said it, I felt the weight of denial crystallizing. My heart ached for answers I didn't even understand. "Lila, please," the stranger implored, their voice a hesitant whisper. "You have to understand things are not what they seem. There's danger surrounding your father, and it's reached your family again." Blake's arm tightened around my shoulders, pulling me closer to his side as if he were daring the world to challenge his resolve. "We need to leave," he repeated, more firmly this time. But as the figure's words sank in, a flicker of uncertainty rose within me. What if they were the only key to unlocking the puzzle of my family's past, of Uncle Sam's ambiguous return, and my father's unresolved story? "Just one moment," I managed, pushing away the fog of panic. I took a step closer, wrestling with my instinct to flee. "What do you know about my father?" A brief flicker of sadness crossed their face. "I know he loved you deeply but felt he had no choice. There are consequences to past actions, and sometimes that means walking away to protect the ones we love." "Protect?" My heart twisted as I recalled distant memories of warm embraces and forgotten promises. "Is that why he left? Because he thought it was best for us?" "Things are more complicated." Their voice trailed off, and the crack in their resolve only deepened my unease. I saw Blake's expression soften, but he was still hesitant, unsure of whether to guide me away from the uncomfortable confrontation or stay by my side and defend the truth, whatever it might reveal. "We need a plan. Whatever is going on, it's pulling us deeper. We can't face it unarmed," he said quietly, but I could sense his anxiety, the looming threat that hovered closer with every word exchanged. "You don't need to fear for your safety," the stranger interjected, their voice firmly rooted in conviction. "But I advise you to act swiftly. Time is not on our side." As if electrified, I felt a sudden rush of determination rise within me. In this moment of flux, I held on to the possibility of uncovering the truth, threading my own narrative beyond what the past had constructed. I needed to know, for better or worse, what shadows crept at the edges of my existence. "Okay," I said, steeling myself against the whirlwind of fear and hope. "Let's talk. But we do it somewhere private, away from all this chaos." Blake's features tightened, but he nodded, the protective lion in him reluctantly yielding to my resolve. I turned back to the stranger, a strange sense of urgency igniting within me. "But know this. If you're lying, if this is some twisted game, you'll regret it. I swear, Lila. The sincerity in their eyes was unsettling yet compelling. The truth will be more powerful than the pain. But even as I prepared to embrace this revelation, an unsettling thought clawed at me. Was uncovering my father's past worth risking the stability of everything I built around me? With each step toward the door, those uncertainties deepened, yet so did my resolve. As we moved, a muffled commotion erupted behind us, followed by a heavy silence. I glanced back over my shoulder, a sinking feeling settling in my gut as familiar shadows flickered at the periphery. There was something lingering, something that went beyond my father's actions or Uncle Sam's return, something that promised to unravel not just my past, but the fabric of my very future, and just like that, uncertainty gripped my heart, for I knew in my soul that the storm was only beginning. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as we exited the building, the voices of chaos behind us fading into a distant hum. I could feel the stranger's presence close beside me as we navigated the dim parking lot, their breathing steady yet laced with tension. Blake's arm remained firmly around my shoulders, a steadfast barrier between me and the uncertainty that loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon. Where do we go? I asked, glancing at the stranger, who seemed to hesitate for a moment before leading us toward a nondescript sedan parked in the corner, its matte black paint absorbing the fading daylight. That we need somewhere safe, they replied, but their eyes betrayed a flicker of fear, and it sent a chill racing down my spine. Somewhere we can talk without prying ears. As we climbed into the car, I wrestled with the cacophony of emotions that engulfed my fear, curiosity, and the lingering ache of betrayal. In the silence that enveloped us, I couldn't shake the thought of Uncle Sam. Just moments ago, I clung to the hope of his return, to a semblance of the family I had longed for, only to have it ripped away by a revelation that hinted at deeper shadows. Who are you? Blake asked again, his voice firm, a clarion call woven with distrust. That I am a friend of your father's, the stranger said, their tone steady despite the weight of the claim. My name is Jordan. I knew him before everything went wrong. Everything? I echoed, the word bitter on my tongue. There were so many layers to unfurl, yet I felt the urge to scream against the rush of memories and possibilities battling inside me. Please listen, Jordan pleaded, their voice tightening. Your father made difficult choices to protect you and your mother. I was trying to help him, and I can still help you. What could possibly make that kind of sacrifice justified? The words spilled out before I could hold them back, my anger and confusion tangling into a desperate need for answers. The truth is complicated. He thought he was shielding you from the fallout of a dangerous situation. There are people who would hurt your family if they discovered his whereabouts. A tremor of realization coursed through me, merging with the echo of my father's name. Is that why he left? To escape danger? To protect us? Yes, Jordan replied, their gaze unwavering. But your father did not understand the full extent of what he was entangled in. It's more than just a matter of safety. It's a tangle of loyalties, debts, and threats that has followed him, and now it's reached you. As the weight of Jordan's words settled in, I felt Blake's grip tighten around my shoulder, grounding me against the rising tide of anxiety. How do we even know you're telling the truth? He asked sharply, the protective instinct bubbling to the forefront. That I held my breath, my heart pounding in sync with the chaos thrumming through my veins. What do we need to know? I inhaled deeply, summoning courage from somewhere deep within. Jordan met my gaze, tension coiling within their expression. Your father's actions weren't just a matter of abandoning you. They were born from a world he wanted to keep you safe from, a world that still exists, and one that may already be closing in. That I felt a cold fist clench around my heart, the scent of danger curling around us in the confined space of the car. Why come to me now? I whispered, wrestling with the impending dread. Because you're in jeopardy, Lila. If you're not careful, the secrets will catch up with you before you can grasp them, Jordan said quietly, the urgency twisting their features. And I'm not the only one looking for answers. The words hung between us like stale air, laden with fear. What do you mean? Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated outside, shattering the stillness of the parking lot. My heart raced as I peered through the darkened windows, adrenaline coursing through me. Several shadows darted across the pavement, their movements sharp and urgent, eyes scanning the dim interiors of parked cars with predatory intent. "Get down." Blake surged into action, pulling me flat against the seat as Jordan cursed under their breath, fumbling for something in their coat. "Who are they?" I gasped, panic intertwining with my growing desperation for clarity. "Enemies from your father's past," Jordan gritted, their expression morphing into one of grim determination. "The same ones who drove him away. We need to get out of here now." As Blake slid over, his muscles tense with urgency, I felt the weight of the world crash down upon me. My entire reality was shifting, unraveling beneath the strain of newfound danger. The thought of how I might become a target in this twisted saga sent a wave of nausea flooding through me, but just as the engine roared to life, a piercing scream rang out, a sound too familiar, yet far too distorted. In that split second, my heart sank, the twinge in my gut coiling tight. "Lila. Get us out of here." Blake's voice broke through, but I was frozen, the sound igniting memories long buried, the shape of the scream echoing against my very core. And then I realized my mother's familiar voice had been caught in that chaos. "Lila, we have to go. Now." Jordan urged, desperation pronounced in their tone, but my breath caught as I watched the mayhem unfold outside, shadows converging with a darkness that felt unrelenting. With a dread heavier than ever before, I turned back to Blake, anxiety clawing at my throat. Everything I had sought, the unknown truths about my father, might very well pull all of us into a sinister game far beyond my comprehension. "Drive!" I shouted, summoning every ounce of resolve. As I stared into the mounting chaos, realization dawned like a bitter sunrise. I had to face the storm, not just for me, but for everyone I loved. As the wheels peeled away from the chaos, the bitter taste of fear locked within my chest made one thing painfully clear: this was only the beginning, and the shadows that haunted my past were reaching out for me once again. The night pressed heavily upon us as the sedan sped through the empty streets, each passing moment steeped in tension. I clutched the edge of my seat, my heart racing in tandem with my thoughts. The echoes of chaos from the parking lot reverberated in my mind, particularly the haunting scream I could not shake. "Lila, think. What do we do next?" Blake cut through my spiraling thoughts, his eyes scanning the road ahead while worry etched a deep line across his forehead. In the dim glow of the dashboard lights, I hardly recognized the boy whose steely resolve matched his passionate spirit. "Don't know," I stammered, the implications of the evening's events weighing heavily on my consciousness. "We have to find my mom. She's in danger." "Jordan, they said the people after my dad would come for us. First things first, we need to figure out a safe place to hide," Jordan interjected, their voice shaking slightly but still commanding attention. "We can't lead them to your mother. If they saw you, they might already be onto her." My heart dropped as I imagined my mother vulnerable, confused, possibly scared out of her mind. I could see her eyes filled with worry etched in the lines of our old family photographs, her voice soft but commanding, urging me to stay safe for our little family unit. "Our home is too risky now. We had to leave so quickly. I don't know where she might go," I said, anguish rising within me as I thought of all the places she could find solace. "No one would expect you to return to where it all began," Jordan said, their voice taking on a more resolute tone. "It's risky, but we need to go back to the last place you saw her. There are allies in shadows." The suggestion hung heavily in the air like a noxious cloud, taunting the frail threads of hope I still possessed. Could I really confront the memories of our old house? What if it was a trap? What if they were already waiting for me, ready to pull me into whatever web had ensnared my father? Yet, I could hardly ignore the power of instinct. My baby brother, the one person I had held dear after the fracture in our family, was waiting for me back there. "Fine. We go back," I declared, forcing my voice to remain steady. "For my mom, for Jamie. We have to try." With a sharp turn, Jordan directed us through the familiar streets of my childhood. I was engulfed by nostalgia, each corner of this town filled with memories, some bittersweet, others tainted by the darkness lurking beneath the surface of our once peaceful life. I could feel the walls of the past closing in, whispers of treachery echoing between the shadows. As the house came into view, a familiar twinkle of light caught my eye in an odd reflection of warmth amidst the chaos raging within my heart. Surely enough, it was the flickering light of the porch, almost as if it were inviting us back home. "Are you sure this is wise?" Blake murmured, his hand instinctively gripping mine, igniting the comfort we so desperately needed. "What if it's a trap, better than waiting until someone finds us," I said, my voice tightening as I opened the door to step into the cooled night air, Jordan following closely behind. "We have to find out if she's here." The three of us inched toward the door, the space between us filled with whispered worries. I swallowed hard and pushed the door open, the creaking sound somehow heavy with the weight of forgotten secrets. The familiar smell of Mom's cooking wafted through the air, but it was tinged with a strange metallic scent that felt ominous as I stepped further inside. "Mom. Are you here?" I called, my voice breaking slightly as I stepped into the dimly lit living room, heart pounding in my chest with the fear that settled like lead in my stomach. Silence answered me, but my eyes were glued to the kitchen where the warmth persisted. "Stay close," Blake whispered, and I could sense the protective instinct surging within him. As we cautiously crept toward the kitchen, each step felt like it was pulling us further into a nightmare. Just as hope started to flicker, a chilling sound pierced the stillness. A soft sob echoed through the hallway. My breath caught, and I pressed forward, focused on the sound, driven by a mixture of dread and determination. "Mom!" I called out desperately, but it was more of a prayer than a sound. I followed the sound, anxiety crawling through my veins, until I reached the doorway to her sanctuary, a half-open door begrudgingly revealing the shadows within. I peered inside, and what met my gaze made my heart reel back in denial. The sight was jarring. My mother lay curled against the wall, her makeup smudged as if she had been crying for hours. Next to her lay an envelope, one I recognized all too well bearing my father's name, the corner slightly crumpled as if someone had fought to contain its danger. My eyes widened in terror, suspicion weaving through me like poison. The moment froze, and dread settled coldly in my stomach. "Mom!" I repeated, fearful of what truth might lay behind that trembling voice. As her gaze lifted and we locked eyes, the sobs ceased. She opened her mouth, but the words that fell next split time itself. "Lila, it's too late. They already know we're here." The scream within me shattered the fragile silence, a warning scream I couldn't voice. In the fluttering shadows of fear, the end of my childhood felt suddenly more inevitable than ever. All I could do was brace myself against the storm, hoping that love could still carve its path through this unyielding darkness. The air in the room felt heavy, like a thick fog that refused to lift, suffocating all hope that had dared to rise within me moments before. I stood there, rooted to the spot, my heart pounding against my ribcage as I struggled to grasp the implications of my mother's words. The world spun around me, everything we had fought for was slipping through our fingers like sand, and all I could hear was the echo of my mother's revelation. "Lila, listen to me," she urged, her voice steady despite the anguish that hung in the air. "You have to take Jamie and run. They can't find you. They can't find him." The mention of my little brother sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. "No. I can't leave you," I protested fiercely, shaking my head as the panic began to bubble over. "What about you? We can't just abandon you." "Look at me, sweetheart," she said, a thin veneer of strength overlaying her fear. "I'm not the one they want. I've kept you too safe for so long, but this is different. They know about your father's debts. They know about the things he did. It's too late for me, but you, Lila, you have to protect your brother." The urgency in her voice pierced through the fog of despair, igniting a flicker of desperation within me. What had my father gotten us into? What led him to make a choice so reckless that it had now shrouded our lives in peril? My instincts screamed at me to find a solution, to fight back, but each option felt like it was crumbling beneath the weight of darkness surrounding us. Blake stepped forward, his presence a calming force. "We can figure this out together," he said, glancing at me before shifting his gaze to my mother. "We won't leave you behind. If they're coming for us, well, face them together." For a fleeting moment, my mother's gaze flickered with longing, reflecting the love and warmth she had always given us. You're both so brave, but this isn't a fight you can win. You don't even know what you're up against. Jordan took a step closer, their voice firm. We know fear, we know loss. We'll do what we have to for the people we love. You're our family, and we won't abandon you. The words hung in the air, a commitment woven from threads of loyalty and hope, yet the gravity of our situation held us back, casting long shadows over our intentions. As my mother used the wall to pull herself into a more upright position, I saw the smudges on her face, signs of a painful burden she had carried alone for too long. Please, just listen, Lila, my mother said, her voice softening as a wave of resolve washed over her features. You remember Mr. Daniels, the old neighbor? He's been a friend to our family. If the worst comes, go to him. He can help you. Show him the envelope, and he'll understand. The name sparked flickers of memory, a faint warmth in the darkness. Mr. Daniels was an overflow of kindness, always bringing us cookies and laughing with my mother when we were younger. He was someone I could trust, but the thought of relying on anyone felt like a gamble. But what if he's not there? I whispered, my voice trembling. Then you keep running, she said resolutely, forcing me to look into her eyes. Keep Jamie safe and don't look back. I refuse to let them take you. A rustling sound dragged our attention to the hallway, and dread twisted my stomach into knots. I glanced at Blake and Jordan, their expressions mirroring my own fear. We had to move, but the thought of leaving her behind became a burden I could hardly bear. Without warning, the creaking floorboards echoed again, the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps approaching. My heart pounded louder, deafening me to everything else. They're here. I hissed in a whisper, panic flooding my veins. Go. My mother urged, her voice breaking. No matter what happens, you must go now. I couldn't think, only act. I reached out, grabbing Blake and Jordan by their arms, and in that moment of chaotic decision, we slipped backward into the shadows of the hallway, my eyes transfixed on my mother even as dread surged. The impending confrontation would mark a transition that none of us were prepared for. As we neared the front door, the sound of murmured voices filled the air, threatening and chilling. I quickened my pace, dragging Blake and Jordan into the dark embrace of the night. I'll be back, I promised, though part of me felt the lie break free from my lips. The door closed behind us, the weight of the threshold heavy against my heart. We stumbled into the yard, the night still embracing us, but the flicker of my mother's light behind the window dwindled as we ran, swallowed by the darkness, each pace an echo of a life we had known. And just as we rounded the corner towards the street, armed with nothing but fear and hope, the reality hit me with a sudden, jarring certainty. What if I failed to return in time? What if the truth behind the envelope held secrets I had yet to unearth, secrets that could unravel the very fabric of our family? The world spun wildly as I fought for clarity, for the strength to keep running, for reignition of the light we were so desperately struggling to keep alive. But ahead loomed the unknown. Each step thrust us deeper into the shadows of danger, but the faintest glimmer of resolve propelled me onward, as visions of Jamie, of love, and of safety guided my every choice. That we might have escaped tonight, but the imminent darkness was still close behind, like a predator waiting for the opportune moment to strike. The home where I found sanctuary now stood as a reminder of what was at stake, and the uncertain path before us glimmered with shadows of challenges yet to come. The cold night air wrapped around us like a shroud as we fled into the unknown, the distant sounds of the city merging into a muffled hum. I could feel my heart racing in my chest, thumping in rhythm with my desperate thoughts. Each footfall felt like a countdown, a reminder that time was slipping through my fingers just as surely as fear gripped my gut. Blake and Jordan stayed close, their silent presence a testament to the unbreakable bond we had forged amidst the chaos. They were my anchors, but even their strength couldn't completely dispel the fractures of uncertainty that rattled my mind. As we veered onto a dimly lit street, a wave of vulnerability crashed over me. What now? The rush of adrenaline, once a steady stream of resolve, was now turning into a torrent of doubt. Lila, we need a plan, Blake whispered, his tone low but urgent. We can't just keep running aimlessly. We have to figure out. I know. I snapped, cutting him off. My voice was sharper than I intended, fueled by the fear that had nested in my chest. I took a breath, forcing the edge out of my voice. I don't know where to go, or what to do next." Jordan placed a hand on my shoulder, grounding me in the moment. "You said something about Mr. Daniels. Do you really think he can help? If we can just get there, maybe we'll be safe for a little while." The thought of Mr. Daniels brought a flicker of warmth amidst the encroaching shadows of despair. Even now, I could picture his kind smile and the way he would always lean in, as if sharing in some delightful secret only we were invited to hear. "Yes, he's our best shot," I finally agreed, though doubts gnawed at me. What if he was gone? What if he didn't want to get involved, or, worse still, if he was part of the mess our father orchestrated? An unbidden rush of anger flared up within me, directed at my father. His choices had not only shattered our family, they were now dragging us into a world marred by danger and fear. Had he ever thought about the consequences of his recklessness? A question that loomed larger than any other. Was he even worth fighting for? A faint light flickered in the distance, the warm glow from Mr. Daniels' front porch. My chest tightened with hope. "That's it. We need to hurry," I urged, taking a cautious step towards the welcoming illumination. I gripped the hands of my companions, my pulse quickening as we approached. The front yard was overgrown and wild, an unpredictable remnant of what was once well kept. The shadows danced playfully around us until we finally reached the porch, the promise of safety hanging in the air like a fragile thread. "I'll knock," Blake said, stepping forward. The hesitation in his voice betrayed his uncertainty, but I nodded, encouraging him with a wan smile. As the fist made contact with the old wooden door, I felt a surge of urgency. I hadn't fully grasped the enormity of what might come next. I had no idea what secrets the envelope swaddled, or if those secrets would entwine us even further in our father's madness. The door creaked open, revealing Mr. Daniels in his favorite plaid robe, a look of surprise morphing into genuine concern. "Lila? What on earth?" His expression shifted ominously as he caught sight of Blake and Jordan Dalmar. "Daniels, we need your help," I said, the words spilling out in a frantic rush. "Please, it's about Mom and Dad were in trouble." Without needing to explain further, he ushered us inside, closing the door against the night chill. Come in, come in. "You're safe now," he said, his voice warm but laced with worry. "What's going on? What's wrong with your mother? Why are you running?" he pressed, looking between our anxious faces. For a moment, I hesitated. The weight of the truth pressed heavily against my chest. If I told him everything, could I trust him? What if it turned out he was just another person tied to the dark threads of our father's past? But as I looked into his earnest eyes, so filled with concern, I found the courage to share the story of our lives unraveling at the seams. "Dad got into something bad. Something that could put us all in danger," I said finally. "He made mistakes that we're not even aware of yet," and now I faltered, the choking sensation returning. "They could come after us, and my mom told me to find you, Dalmar." Daniels listened intently, his gaze unwavering as he processed the rush of information. I could see his mind racing, calculating risks, and considering solutions, but what I couldn't read was the flicker of something else. "Concerned that I can help you, Lila. I'll protect you and Jamie," he promised, but the weight of it felt heavy, like a burden he hadn't asked for yet was now firmly resting on his shoulders. Just as relief began to wash over me, shattering the hold of panic, a noise erupted from the street outside, a car door slamming followed by the sound of heavy boots on pavement. My heartbeat quickened again. The dread settled like a lead weight in my stomach, twisting painfully. "Get down," Blake hissed, pulling Jordan close to him as we ducked behind the older man, enveloped in his protective presence. "What is it?" Mr. Daniels asked, his voice taut with alarm. "You don't understand. They're here. They could be coming for us right now," I whispered, barely able to choke out the words, the fear oozing from every pore. With a determined glint in his eye, Mr. Daniels moved toward the window, peeking through the dingy curtains. "I'll call the police. We have to be smart about this," but just as he reached for the phone, a piercing voice cut through the night, sending a chill spiraling down my spine. "We know you're in there, Lila. Open up, a cold sensation wrapped around me like a vice. They were here, so close I could almost feel the chill of their intentions in the air. They found us, I whispered, the panic billowing in my chest like a dark cloud. Never before had I felt so unmoored, waiting for the storm to come crashing down, certain that the storm was no longer an abstraction but rather a palpable threat looming just beyond our escape. Would we make it through, or would the darkness finally swallow us whole? At that moment, the only thing I knew for certain was that we were standing on the precipice, teetering dangerously close to the brink of despair. The tension in the room was palpable as I held my breath, waiting for Mr. Daniels to respond to the ominous voice that pierced the air outside. I could hear the desperation in my heart, thudding like a war drum, drowning out all rational thoughts. Every fleeting image of safety, warmth, and kindness that Mr. Daniels had ever given us shimmered like a distant mirage, threatened to dissipate into the unforgiving night. Get away from the window, I hissed, managing to wrangle control over the quiver in my voice. My eyes darted around the room, scanning for places to hide, for anything that could shield us from the storm that was closing in. There was a strange comfort in the old portraits lined on the walls, staring back at us like silent witnesses to our unraveling. Listen to her, Walter. Blake's voice was steady, though I could see the fire of anxiety in his eyes. They won't hesitate if they think they can get in. We need a back exit. Wait. Mr. Daniels' tone was urgent, but his face was resolute. If they know you're here, they might not leave without a fight. My first concern is your safety. That I could see the gears turning in his mind. My heart ached at the thought of dragging him into this nightmare. He had already done so much for us. But they'll come for you too. You can't protect us if they find you. A loud bang reverberated through the door, shaking the frame. Lila. We know you're in there. You can't hide forever. The relentless voice mocked us, a sinister reminder of the entrapment that loomed just outside the fragile walls of safety. That we don't have time. Jordan said, voice quivering but bold. He was the youngest, yet managed to anchor us, reminding us that the fight wasn't finished. There has to be another way out, Mr. Daniels. A brief flicker of understanding passed between Mr. Daniels and me. It was a shared knowledge that we were unlikely to emerge unscathed from this night. Someone had to be brave. The back door, he finally said, his voice steadied. But we'll have to move quickly. I'll cover for you. No. I grasped the old man's arm, my voice shaking with desperation. You can't. If they find you here, please, you mean too much to us, more than you know, Lila. Now go, Mr. Daniels insisted, brushing my hand away gently, his brow furrowing with a strength I hadn't seen before. I wanted to argue, to clamp down onto the tiny morsel of hope that anchored me to believing he could weather this storm, but those thoughts were abruptly snuffed out by the voices drawing closer, bickering amongst themselves about how best to enter. Taking a step toward the back exit, Blake wrapped an arm around my shoulders, guiding Jordan ahead of us. We tiptoed over the accumulated clutter of Mr. Daniels' home, the disheveled remnants of his once orderly life, as though it too had been pulled into our chaos. Every creak of the floorboard sent small jolts of dread surging through me. When we reached the back door, I hesitated, my hand hovering over the knob. I couldn't shake the unnerving thought that we were on the brink of tearing apart, unraveling from the small-threaded comforts we had experienced in his home. Would stepping outside mean losing our chance at safety forever? Lila, we have to, Blake urged softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Well, stick together. I nodded, forcing myself to turn the knob, and as the door swung open into the dark void of night, an overwhelming chill swept over me. The street was shrouded in shadow, but there was no time for fear. Go. Mr. Daniels shouted from behind, his voice carrying both urgency and a strange wave of reassurance. We bolted forward. The air was heavy with the scent of impending rain, and I could feel the storm gathering, both in the atmosphere and within myself. Shadows loomed around us, twisting and turning as we dashed across the yard and into the alleyway. Heart racing, I looked back once to see Mr. Daniels standing in the doorway, a weak smile on his lips that failed to mask the fear raging behind his eyes. No. I screamed as I saw a figure step out of the shadows behind him, clad in dark clothing, just as threatening as the voice had promised. Stay together. Blake shouted as he seized my hand, pulling me further away. The echo of footsteps followed us, plummeting into the distance as we sprinted deeper into the night. But the night was alive with chaos. The sinister symphony of distant police sirens began to spiral out of reach, like a fading echo of safety. I felt the pang of guilt stab at me with every step we took, the knowledge that we were leaving someone behind. Lila, we have to pick a direction now. Jordan panted, glancing back towards the looming darkness. They've got to have made it inside by now. The urgency was suffocating, a tightening noose that wound itself around my heart. My mind raced, but both my instincts and anger began to fuse into a singular thought. No, I gasped. We have to go back. Were you crazy? Blake's eyes widened, filled with both determination and fear. If they catch us, all of this everything will just unravel. But across the distance, a different voice rang out, the sound tinged with desperation. Lila. If you can hear me, come back. They're looking for you. It's a setup. My blood ran cold as the realization crashed down upon me like a rogue wave mister. Daniels hadn't just offered his help, he was offering himself as bait. The fear that coursed through me crystallized into something sharper, more visceral. My breath hitched, and the reality sunk heavily into the pit of my stomach. No, I whispered in horror. No, this can't be happening. That I turned, a primal instinct clawing at my brain. As we spun around, the dark presence flooded the path behind us, the voices tightening the noose of dread around our throats. In that moment, the world narrowed, and all I could focus on was the faint silhouette of Mr. Daniels being swallowed by the shadows. My heart plummeted, and for the first time, the darkness that had loomed over us transformed into a terrifying reality, a truth so cold it thrummed in my veins. Lila. The voice called again, urgency reflecting my rising panic. You have to choose, but the choice, the disheartening choice, was already made. The storm had arrived, and no matter what we did next, one thing was certain, the battle was far from over. And in this tangled web of trust betrayed and choices unmatched, we found ourselves lost with no clear way back. The fog of disbelief hung thick in the air as we raced through the shadows, my heart hammering against my ribcage like a war drum. I could feel Blake and Jordan's presence beside me, but their hands felt like chains, binding me to an impossible choice. There was no question about it. I had to go back. I could still hear Mr. Daniels' voice ringing in my mind, urging me to return, and the chilling echo of footsteps closing in sent my heart plummeting into despair. Lila, please listen to me. Blake's voice cut through the chaos, trying to pull me from the clutches of my swirling thoughts. But I was already sprinting back through the alley, the cold air burning my lungs as I fought against the fear that threatened to consume me whole. I could not let him face whatever danger awaited without me by his side. He's in trouble. I shouted, desperation spilling from my lips. If they find him alone, he won't stand a chance. Before they could respond, I turned back, racing against time and dread, like a candle flickering in a storm. Panic surged within me as I slipped through the familiar back gate, the threshold between safety and chaos. The night was heavy with tension as I approached the house, the shadows stretching ominously like claws reaching for me. But this was home, a beacon of comfort turned fortress in the dark storm brewing outside. Lila, we can't go back, Jordan pleaded, gasping as he struggled to keep pace. I didn't respond. My feet carried me toward the door, each step igniting a bittersweet blend of nostalgia and foreboding. Step back. I shouted, fear seeping into my voice as I braced myself for confrontation. The creaking door felt like an anchor to my thoughts, all the sweet memories of laughter and warmth colliding violently with the chaos that enveloped my family. I pushed the door open and stepped into the darkened living room, my instincts aflame, searching for signs of life amidst the shadows. Daniels. I called out, my voice quivering with urgency. Silence. The hollow echo of my own words fell flat against the cold reality, the fact that I might have been too late. With my heart racing, I moved cautiously toward the kitchen, the air thick with an overwhelming sense of dread. I could hear voices creeping from the hallway, taunting whispers filled with malicious intent. We know you're here. One voice barked, the total imbalance of power threatening to unravel everything I had left, just as I felt the shadows wrapping around me, engulfing me whole. A flicker of movement in the corner caught my eye. I turned, heart pounding, as I spotted Mr. Daniels pinned against the wall, two shadowy figures looming over him menacing and cold. "Stop!" I shouted, refusing to let fear consume me any longer. The room fell silent in disbelief, and all eyes turned in my direction. Time hung still as I took a step forward. "You want me? Come for me. Let him go." The men exchanged glances, a glint of surprise flashing across their faces, before one of them smirked at me, a malicious twist to his lips. "Look at this brave little girl," he sneered. "You think you can save him? It's adorable. But you have no idea what you're dealing with." My heart raced as I tried to gauge their intentions, fear conflict with an unexpected surge of defiance. "No, you don't understand. If you want me, you'll have to get through him first," I stated, voice unwavering even as my mind screamed at me to flee. But just as the tension hung thick in the air, the final thread of courage pulled tight within me, a sudden crash erupted from the back door, and the heavy weight of darkness rushed the room. "Lila!" Blake's voice roared through the chaos as he charged into the room, Jordan on his heels. "Leave him alone!" Blake shouted, pushing forward in a protective stance, a lion's roar that filled the space with renewed strength. Chaos erupted around us, my senses overloaded with crashing waves of confusion and fury. Jordan quickly moved to stand beside Blake, fetching some makeshift weapon, a glass bottle filled with the remnants of his last drink. But at that moment, I couldn't hold on to the uncertainty of whether we were strong enough. The fear pulsed through me, and I felt powerless to halt the storm that weighed heavy on our hearts. In an instant, the two men lunged forward, seeking dominance, and as they did, a sudden surge of adrenaline ignited within me. In a flash, I dashed toward Mr. Daniels, crying out, "Get down!" The world shifted in a blur, bodies collided, chaos spinning around as I desperately tried to push him free. But before I could reach him, a sharp shout erupted, "Grab the girl!" And panic deepened the cauldron of confusion surrounding me. Suddenly, my fingers found the envelope on the floor, its edges crumpled from the intensity of the struggle. My heart stilled as I gazed at it, aware of the burden it held, a harbinger of truth that could set us free, or destroy us. I grasped it and swiftly ripped it open, my eyes scanning the contents as chaos washed over me. As the fight continued, the words on the paper began to weave together: family names, debts, dark secrets, but the one name that surfaced drew my breath away. "It can't be," I whispered, the truth hitting me with the force of a tidal wave. Emily Hunt. The name lingered with haunting familiarity, warning signs flashing through my consciousness. Everything about this moment began to swirl, linking back to the past I had fought so hard to escape. "Get out! Now!" Mr. Daniels shouted, breaking through the chaos of my thoughts and shaking me from the trance that enveloped me. "Mr. Daniels!" I called, fear seizing my voice. What does this mean? But time was short, the two men were advancing, and my memories of the words collided with purpose within me. "This doesn't end here!" I shouted defiantly, clutching tightly to the envelope, me key to unraveling the truth of our predicament, and as Blake and Jordan fought fiercely beside Mr. Daniels, I gathered every ounce of courage, holding on to that thin thread of hope. We're not done. This is our story, and no one will write it for us. With one final push, the scene erupted into chaos, a clash of bodies and resolve. I dove forward, the envelope a shield against the impending storm, ready to uncover the secrets within. In that moment, I realized that the only path forward lay through embracing the darkness, and with every heartbeat, every pulse of adrenaline, I chose to step into the blaze, knowing I had everything to lose. "Lila! Run!" Blake roared, but I stayed rooted, heart hammering in my chest as the tension thickened, weapons clashing amidst the echoes of a relentless storm. As the passionate cries filled the air, I found myself standing firm, no longer just a pawn in someone else's story, but the author of my own. I wouldn't back down. In the swirling chaos of uncertainty and fear, I resolved to embrace the unknown, knowing that the other side could lead to redemption, forgiveness and perhaps even love, though the road would be littered with shadows. And with that thought, I charged forward, heart ablaze with the realization that every moment I fought, every breath I took was an affirmation of my existence. In that smart world, shrouded with darkness, I had found my voice, and nothing could extinguish the fire that had finally ignited within me. "Let's finish this," I yelled, directing the flames of our purpose, ready to face whatever awaits on the other side. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes. As I steeled myself for what lay ahead, I vowed that I would uncover the truth no matter the cost, because in that very moment, one thing became resoundingly clear: I was not just surviving, I was finally living. And I would protect my own.